Hello, welcome to the Health In Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. You've come to the right place to tune in and participate with your comments and questions. Love is the greatest healer of all, but sometimes, in order to change our emotions, we must take action in other spheres of our lives. We speak with experts in alternative and complementary health fields and hope you will benefit in some small or great way. Remember, you are wherever your thoughts are. Make sure your thoughts are where you want to be.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening. Hello, my name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Health In Show, and we are so excited that you have joined us today. I want to say hello to our producer, Amnon. Hey there, Amnon.
Good morning. Keep going.
All right. And then I'm going to say hi to Deepak, who's another host. Hey, Deepak. Dr.
Hello,
Sharma.
everyone.
Hey.
Hello, good evening from my side.
All the way from India. Or maybe I'm all the way from the United States, who knows? And then Dr. Pretty Shaw, good morning or I think it's good evening where you are, right?
Good evening from my end, but good morning, good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to our show.
And then Uta, good morning. Oh, is it afternoon there?
It's late afternoon. It's 3 o'clock p.m. at my end of the world. I'm in Portugal and Europe. Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon. And so before Uta introduces our very exciting guest, I just want to remind everyone to please feel free to join us in our chat. You can put your name, nickname, whatever you like under the video, and you can come in there and ask questions. You can comment, because this will be, I promise, a lively show. And you are also welcome to contact us through Skype. That would be voice at computers. Then the number 2K voice anytime you want. If you'd like to comment as well, we'd love to have you. So Uta, would you please introduce our guest today?
Yes, I will do that, certainly. We have Dr. Gabriel Blass with us today. He's going to share some insights into medical astrology with us. Dr. Gabriel Blass is a qualified doctor. He's involved with homeopathy since many years and runs a practice in Glasgow, Scotland. He's the holder of the Certificate of the Faculty of Astrology Studies and the winner of the Ray Allen Award of the faculty exams. And he has a keen interest in exploring the relationship between planetary energies and health. Hello, Dr. Gabriel Blass. How are you today?
Greetings from Glasgow. I am very well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here. And I'm excited to share my passion for these two fascinating disciplines.
Mm-hmm. So what actually is medical astrology?
I'll tell you what it isn't.
Okay.
Let me preamble that by saying that there's a lot of misunderstanding, both in homeopathy and in astrology, because they don't follow logically, and their mechanisms of actions are not well understood. So what happens is that there's a lot of misunderstanding around the subject. Like, for example, 38 years ago as a medical student, if you had told me that you can get any substance and dilute it and shake it out of existence and it has wonderful healing abilities, I would have said, I don't think so. And it was only subsequently through actually being exposed to people who got treatment, who got better, and seeing the results over the years, that then I became convinced of how useful it is. And it's the same situation in a way with astrology. If you had asked me 38 years ago, what is astrology? I would have said, well, it's that silly thing in the newspaper where you're dividing the whole population into 12 and a twelfth of the population on Wednesday night are going to meet a tall, dark, handsome stranger. I thought, that's absolute rubbish. So fast forward 38 years, and I still think it's rubbish because that's not what astrology is, at least not in my eyes.
Mhm.
Astrology is a discipline that has been evolving over 4,000 years. I mean, humanity has been fascinated with the skies since they looked up. And over the last 4,000 years, they have tried to correlate the movements of the heavenly bodies with things occurring here on Earth.
Mhm.
Very much like with homeopathy, there's not a clear mechanism of action on how it works. And people confuse that and think that it can't possibly be effective because we don't have a mechanism of action.
Mhm.
So the kind of astrology that I'm interested in and I have a huge amount of respect for, because over the years it has furnished wonderful insights, is the astrology that requires a proper computation of a natal chart.
Mhm.
So there are various branches of astrology. There's mundane astrology that pertains to movement of energies for the whole global community. There's horary, which is like a chart that you draw up to ask a specific question. And then there's natal astrology. And natal astrology is taking a snapshot of the position of the planets at the time of birth. And in order to do that properly, you need to have the person's date, place, and time of birth. And then you can erect a chart, and that, yes, that has a amazing ability to help you understand the person. It's like a map of the soul or a blueprint of the person. And to answer your question, medical astrology is a subset of natal astrology that looks at the kind of tendencies that people have for health or for illness, for their constitution, whether they run hot or they run cold, that kind of thing. And as we speak, we'll be able to go into it in a lot more detail. Just to clarify that some people use medical astrology in a different way. They use it from a horary point of view. So, for example, if someone comes with a medical question, they'll draw up a chart for that particular point, in order, for that particular moment in time, to answer the question. Because each moment has a particular feel to it. And the reason we use the natal chart is that at the time when you take your first breath, you are sealing or you're solidifying that particular essence of the person. And you can describe it in terms of the homeopathic, the astrological planetary energies.
May I ask a question? Right,
Yeah.
because that's very fascinating. So does that mean that we all, according to our astrological sign, have a predisposition to certain diseases or ailments?
Not just according to your astrological sign. If you look at the chart, usually what people are very familiar with is their sun sign. That is the sign that the sun was in at the moment that you're born. Now, there are a lot of other planets involved. So we've got a whole team that are helping you in manifesting your energies. So first of all, let me say that the sun and the moon are not planets, but in astrology speak, we look at them as planets because they all revolve around the Earth from the Earth's point of view. We all know that the solar system revolves around the sun, but from the geocentric point of view, which is where we are based and where our consciousness is based, they are moving along the ecliptic. So I include the sun and moon as planets, even though they're not planets. So you've got the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And it's the combination of all those together that give you an idea of what health challenges you have and what health capacities you have and what capacities to heal you have and so on and so forth.
Very interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing more. Go ahead, tell us.
Okay, the natal chart is it's a circular chart, and I'll share the screen in a minute to explain, but I want to preamble it by saying that it's in symbolic form.
Mhm.
So each planet, each sign has its own symbol, and each of those represents an archetypal energy or a particular way of manifesting the energy. So it's like a language, and it takes time to learn the language. When you first see a natal chart, you might be quite intimidated. Part of the PowerPoint share that I'm going to use is to demystify it a bit. But after that, it's a question of just gaining skill in understanding the relationships between the planetary energies and how they manifest in health and disease. You can derive a huge amount of information from the natal chart. The way I got into it is that someone did a chart reading for me, and I had gone in with an open mind, and I almost fell off my seat because they were so accurate in what they were able to tell me about myself. And for a long time, it has been the psychological side of astrology that has been kind of expanded. But I see mind-body as a unity. So if it works at psychological level, it must work at body level. And for the last 30 years, what I've been doing is looking to see and make the correlations between the planetary configurations and the kind of illnesses that my patients have had. So initially I would start with cured cases, with people that I understood well, who I had treated and who had got better. And then as I learned more and more and made the connections, then I started using it for the more difficult cases to try and understand, okay, what am I missing here, for example? Or what questions can I ask that would open the case so that I understand a bit better what the person is experiencing? So that's how I got into it.
So would you say it's a regular tool you are going to in your practice?
I'm always wanting to learn more, but I would say I use it in selected cases, in that if you take a homeopathic case and if the book opens and you can read it, then you can be fairly certain of what remedy the patient needs. But in certain situations where either the patient doesn't understand what's going on, or they find it difficult to express it, or for example, in children, it can be a great adjunct to try and understand. We are not at the stage where we could look at the chart and say, okay, with this particular chart, I would give it this particular remedy. It's not at that stage yet. I don't know even if we'll reach that, because the chart shows you the potential that the person manifests, but not necessarily how they use that potential.
Can I interrupt you 1 second? Because there's a question, and I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure. How do you spell natal?
Natal.
Okay, that's what I got.
It has to do with birth, so it's the birth chart.
Prenatal, right? Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Okay, go ahead. I don't want to stop you.
Okay,
Gabriel, before you move ahead, I had one basic question.
Yes.
Before we take a deep dive. So, as astrology for a common man, for a lay person like me who knows nothing about it, is a tool or a science through which one understands the constitution or the character of a person, or something that is used to predict the future, maybe.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
But can it, when you say medical astrology, does it mean that it could also be therapeutic in nature? Because finally, medicine is about giving a therapy. So I don't know, how does this all kind of come together?
Okay, I'll take the last question first.
Okay.
For a huge amount of time, until maybe a couple of 100 years ago, all physicians had to have a working knowledge of astrology. And it's quite interesting that when we write a prescription, let's see if we can see it, the RX sign allegedly comes from the root chart, which is a natal chart. And it means that before writing the prescription, the physician examined the natal chart in order to be better informed about the subject. Okay,
Fascinating.
and that's
That is,
so,
my God.
so 200 or 300 years ago, people were conversant with constitutions, with the elements, and they're very, very useful tools. And there are 4 elements in astrology: air, water, fire, and earth. But it's not the actual elements, it's not the actual substances. They represent archetypal energies. Like, for example, fire, air represent hot and cold, and they give you an idea of your rate of metabolism. So if you have a lot of fire, your metabolic rate will be high and you'll run hot. Then with water and earth, that's another polarity, gives you the level of hydration, which gives you an idea of the amount of osmosis that takes place, intercellular transport, and so on and so forth. So it gives you very useful information, but they're not literal. You know, we don't have fire as such or earth in our body. They're archetypal concepts that underlie physiology. There's always, to answer the second part of your question, Preeti, there's always the argument. So is it fate or is it free will? And my answer is a conclusive yes. Because it's both. It's both. The chart defines the kind of energies that you have available. Can you still hear me? Because
Yes.
yes. It defines the kind of energies that you have available or the kind of tools that you have available. So say, for example, you're born and in your chart, you have hammer energy, okay? That's fated, you can't change it. That's a tool you get. But how you use it is different. There's where free will comes in. You can use it to build a house, beautiful house, or you can use it to smash someone's brain in. So there's an element of free choice and an element of fate involved in it. And I think one of the dangers of astrology, medical astrology, but astrology in general, is that if you say someone is fated to something, you can disempower them. And that's the complete diametric opposite of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to empower people to have more choices because of a deeper understanding of what their strengths and weaknesses are. So it's an empowering tool. It's a tool to expand consciousness.
So beautifully put. A tool to expand consciousness. It's just kind of amazing.
It's a tool for growth, yes.
Yes.
Wondering if at this point we should go to the PowerPoint presentation, because I'm sure that will generate more questions. As I explained before, homeopathy and astrology both have this kind of obscure mechanism, and they both work in an energetic way. So in homeopathy, you understand the imbalance of the vital force by the signs and symptoms and the diseases that the person manifests. In astrology, you look at the chart and you get an idea of the energies that the person manifests through signs, planets, aspects, and symbols. So I am going to attempt to share screen. Let's see if I can do that successfully. Okay, here we go.
Yes.
So let me start. This is purportedly a Hahnemann's chart, but I don't know how accurate the time is. The time needs to be fairly accurate. Now, if I go F5, we should go, that's it, thank you. Okay, so let's look at the natal chart. Basically, it's a snapshot of the solar system at the moment of birth. So the person is standing here and looking outwards in all directions. So it's a geocentric perspective on consciousness. And the ecliptic works as a cosmic ruler. But before you can understand what that means, let's talk about what is the ecliptic. So this is a diagram of the solar system. You've got the sun at the center, and you've got the inner planets rotating around them: Mercury, Venus, then Earth, then Mars, then Jupiter. And if we zoom out a bit more, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Okay, now they all go round in more or less the same plane, except Pluto, which is a bit tilted, is a bit eccentric. And the ecliptic is an imaginary circle, large circle in the sky, along which the sun moves in its yearly cycle. Okay, so don't confuse it with the circle that the sun traces in the 24 hours due to rotation of the earth. It's not that. If you look at 12 o'clock every day, the sun over the course of a year inches forward by 1 degree. And the path it traces is called the ecliptic. And the way the ecliptic is measured is against a background far, far behind it of all the various constellations. So we get the ecliptic and it forms the rim of the chart. So this is the ecliptic, and it's divided into 30-degree segments with the 12 signs. So you go Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Okay so far? Then we'll add the planets. So these are the planets in the positions against the ruler of the ecliptic when Hahnemann was born.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the planets are like the actors in the cosmic play. They're the prime movers. And we'll come to that in a bit more detail. But what's important is the aspects between them. So Hahnemann had a square aspect, which is 90 degrees, between Jupiter and Pluto. And various different planets will have aspects to each other. And so if two planets are in aspect, basically they are entwined in their energies and they both come out to play at the same time. Okay, and the way we denote them is by drawing the aspects between the planets. Now, this looks very complicated because it's full of symbols that you don't know, but I'm giving you an introduction to it. So here you see there's a square between Jupiter and Pluto, and that's red. That's another square here between Pluto and Mars and between Pluto and Uranus. And then there's a trine, which is the square is 90 degrees, the trine is 120 degrees, and there's one between Pluto and Moon, for example. And then there's a sextile, which is 60 degrees. You don't need to remember all this, it's just for example, between Saturn and Mercury. And then there's an opposition, which is 180 degrees between them, between Jupiter and Mars. And in that way, you can start building up the story that's occurring in the person's life. Then you change the orientation, because the chart for Hahnemann would be standing here at the time of his birth. And due east is the rising sun sign or the ascendant. And due west is the descendant. And the highest point in the ecliptic due south is here is the midheaven. And the opposite is the IC or immune coeli. And that's basically how you construct the chart. It's very technical. You don't need to know any of that because fortunately nowadays you can go online and put in all the information and wham, up comes your chart. When I started, we had to do all the arithmetic by hand and it took about 2 hours to get it. But that's how you construct the chart, just to give you an idea. So you've got the ecliptic, you've got the planets have conversations with each other, the planets are in particular signs, and that's what gives you all the information. And I'm going to give you a few examples so that you can get an idea of how it all works.
Dr. Blass, can I ask you one question?
Sure, of course.
Okay, and you might have already answered this in your talk, but I'm not sure. So if let's say, for instance, I am my birth is whatever time it is, how am I different than somebody else who's born exactly at the same time?
Because the computation of all the positions depends both on time and location.
Okay.
So in terms of sidereal time, you have to adjust for the position on Earth at a particular time so that you can get universal time. So if they're born at the same time, at the same place as you might be surprised to see that they have a lot of properties in common. But if they're born at the same time in a different part of the world, then they won't.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions at this point?
Thank you for that.
Shall I continue then?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the chart components are the planets, the aspects between the planets, the signs the planets are in, and the houses and the angles. I haven't talked about the houses, but I will in the next slide. So this is the cosmic play, which is Liz Green's, who's a great astrologer, way of describing how all these factors work in the natal chart. And the planets are the actors. They are the energies that are available to you. The aspects are the plot, the interaction between the actors. Some get on well, others are in conflict the whole time. Others work well with others, but not with, have friends and enemies. And that helps you see the tensions and the natural virtues that you have access to. The signs are the actor's costume, because basically the signs modulate the primary energy of the planets. So they give it a particular flavor. And that's, when we talk about signs and we say someone is an Aries and they're very fiery and very punchy, it's because the sun is imbued or colored by Aries. The houses are another division. You've got the signs where you're dividing the circle into 12. And then the houses is a different way of dividing the circle into 12. So it's like dividing the cake into 12, but not in the same way as in the signs. And whereas the signs tell you about modulate the energy of the planets, the houses give you the areas on the stage of life where the play unfolds. Like, for example, the 7th house has to do with partnerships and significant others. So if you've got difficult planets there, it might suggest that you have rather challenging relationships in your life. If it's in the 4th house, it has to do with infancy or family life, and so on and so forth with all the houses. And the transits are the aspects that the planets in the sky, as they move around the whole time, make with sensitive points in your natal chart. So at the moment of birth, the positions of the planets got fixed. That's your chart. That doesn't move for you. That's fixed. But the planets didn't stop at the time that you were born. They keep going round and round. And as they do, at certain points, they prod your planetary energies, and that gives rise to the experiences that you have in your life. And sometimes they're very pleasant experiences, sometimes they're mind-blowing, sometimes they're very challenging, but they're always tools for growth. So that's the cosmic play. And this is my take on Liz Green's analogy. And this is a medical drama. And here's where we get into the nitty-gritty of things. So the planets are the actions or processes in the body, the systemic physiology of all the processes that are necessary to sustain life. The aspects are how the planets modify the physiological processes of other planets. So how they interact. The signs tend to give you an idea of the location or the local anatomy where events happen, whether it's physiology or pathology. And the houses also give you an idea of location, but in addition, kind of external influences that are prone to influence health. There is an overlap with the signs, and there's still a lot of work, I think, to be done to find the subtle nuances between these in terms of location.
Mhm.
And the transits, just like I explained in the previous slide, gives you the timing of disease manifestation. Okay, so far, I'm throwing a lot at you because we only have an hour, but I don't want you to get indigestion.
No, this is great, but I just want to remind people that, you are welcome to give us a call from our audience wherever you are, and you can call in with Skype at computers and then the number 2K voice, and you can also chat with us in our chat. Just put your name under the window and we'll be sure to answer your question from there as well. So take this opportunity because this is a golden one. Thank you so much. Yeah, continue.
So
Okay.
I had a question or two, if I may.
Yes, please.
So you spoke about the planetary positions that were at the time of your birth, and then you also spoke that the positions keep changing. The planets are constantly on the move, isn't it?
That's the planets in the sky, yes.
Yes. So what happens when the planetary positions are in the exact same position that they were when you were born, like when it exactly matches?
It will never happen because Pluto moves very slowly, and it would take about 248 years to reach the same natal position. So it will never be exactly the same. Once you're made, the mold is broken.
Interesting.
But having said that, the planets in the sky will make angles to the planets in the chart and activate them. Does that answer your question?
It does. But that brings me to another corollary question that let's say, in the Eastern astrology or Jyotish, they say there are certain movements in the sky, in the planet, in the universe, has an effect on us, and there are these transits that you've shown in your presentation right now. That there are particular timings where you will manifest certain diseases, or there will be certain periods in your life which will be high, and there will be certain periods that are low. Is there an intervention in Western astrology, in medical astrology, that can help
Very
change
much.
the course of this? Yeah. Hello.
Sorry, you're breaking up.
Yeah. So So is there a way in medical astrology, in the Western astrology, of how these transitions or transit periods can be altered or made kind of more soothing?
Yes, yes. There are. And that's one of the beauties of medical astrology, that if you look at transits, and I'm just talking about transits, but there are progressions and solar arc and directions. There's all sorts of other things, but I'm trying to keep it simple. And transits are the ones that you notice the most in a way. So there's a lot that can be done. Like, for example, Mars is the planet that helps you defend your borders. So it prevents you, or it helps you fight any intruders, any bacteria, viruses, and so on a physical level. On an emotional level, it's your fighting spirit. It's your inner soldier. So that's the correlation between the physical and the emotional. They both help to fight and keep intruders out when it's in balance. When it's overdone, it can make you very irritable and getting too choleric and too angry for reasons that are not justified. And if it's too low, then it makes you very meek and you don't have the ability to really stand your ground. Now, if you've got a Mars that is not in balance, for whatever life experience, you've learned to use it in a particular way, and it's a problematic Mars, when you are getting a transit to Mars, chances are it will be activated. So say Pluto comes along and makes a conjunction to Mars. Pluto is a planet that intensifies everything. It throws it in your face in order that you deal with things and transform them. So if you know that Pluto is going to come to activate your Mars, and you know that you're not good at being assertive, or you're prone to recurrent infections or something like that, you know you have to sit up and do something to address that. If it's a problem, say, with maintaining your boundaries and asserting yourself, then that would be the time to go to an assertiveness class and to start learning what is it that's stopping you from being able to say no when you mean no. If you're prone to recurrent infections, that's the time, or just before that, to consult a homeopath and make sure that your immune system is made strong, because you know that it's going to be under stress. So it can give you an idea of when you'll be more challenged. On the other hand, if it's Jupiter that's going over your Mars, then Jupiter expands the Mars energy, and it can mean that you're going through a time where you've got tons of energy and you can do much more than you did before. So if you were training for a marathon, that's a great time to do it.
Interesting, very interesting.
So sorry, Uta, before I so you
no.
Moon is also considered a planet, right? Now what happens, because moon phases are much more often, and I mean, we know, right, a full moon or a no moon affects some people so tremendously, psychologically and physically. So these transits, the moon transits, are much more often. So what is your advice for people who get frequently affected because of this?
Well, again, it depends on the position of the moon, but we're going to talk about that in a little more depth. So sure. I think things will become clear. But while we're talking about the moon and how it influences the body and the body's fluid through gravitational forces, it's worth stating that the way that astrology works has really is not about gravitational forces, because Pluto has a tremendous effect on health and disease. And it's a tiny planet way out at the edge of the solar system, and yet it has a profound effect. So the way things work are not by gravity. That's one of the kind of postulated theories. The way I see things is through synchronicity, that everything is synchronous. And what we experience down here and what occurs up there in some sort of miraculous way is synchronous. And what astrology does, it gives you an idea of timing, but it doesn't really explain why that should be the case. But let's press on. The planets are the energies of the personality. All the energies need to be experienced by one's consciousness. You don't get a choice in that. You might get a choice in how you experience them, but if you incarnate, this is your classroom lesson for this time round. There are different levels of expression. The planets can express at mental levels, which are shown by beliefs, mindsets, and projections, psychological projections, yes. Emotional, but they describe the needs, drives, and instincts that the person has, including expression, suppression, and defenses. It can express physically through somatization through the body and manifestation of disease. It can be expressed externally through conscious or unconscious behaviors, and externally as well through circumstances and events that appear to occur from the outer world. Now, to give you an example, let's look at these two energies. Say that there is a strong aspect between Mars and Uranus in your natal chart. We talked a little bit about what Mars energy is like, and there are a few keywords here: anger, fighting, drive, aggression, competition, action, force. Okay? Uranus is a completely different beast. It describes your need for freedom, to get rid of old wood and let in new things, a breath of fresh air. So it can lead to disruption, to unconventionality, unpredictability, great creativity, technological innovation, or spasms as well. So in the chart, it could manifest at a number of levels, of the levels that I described before. So a nice way of doing it is I've used color here and keywords to describe. So at mental level, it can be invention drive. So for example, the launch of a new product, or it can be unconventional competition, playing a blind chess tournament. It might not manifest at that level. It might manifest at the emotional level, disruption energy, someone who's very prone to temper tantrums. At the physical level, free aggression, like starting a karate class or enjoying a martial art, or active spasm, like epileptic fits, migraines, spasms of the blood vessels. Like, for example, if Mars was in Aries, which rules the head, then migraine would be more likely, or muscle cramps. Like if Mars was in Sagittarius or in Aquarius, then it would occur in the thigh or below the knee. At the external level, it could be an unpredictable force, like a road traffic accident, or freedom fighting, someone who has extremist tendencies, or experiences an extremist attack. So it can manifest at many, many levels, and you can't tell at which level it will manifest. So again, this is a warning not to try and predict the future, because it's likely to be very accurate. You can very accurately predict the kind of energies that are involved, but you don't know if it's going to come out as an illness or as a black belt in karate. All right. So I know that some of our viewers and listeners don't know much about homeopathy. So this is a 3-minute whistle-stop tour of homeopathy, just so that I can then put it all together with some examples. Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So in homeopathy, we see symptoms as the body's attempt to tell you something is out of balance. The body doesn't speak English, Spanish, or any other language, it speaks symptoms. And homeopathy is a system of medical treatment which stimulates the body's own self-healing mechanisms to effect a cure. And it does that because the remedies appear in some way that's not clearly understood to impart a biological signal to the organism, which helps the body overcome the obstacles it couldn't overcome unaided. So it gives it some more muscle to get through it. Samuel Hahnemann was the one that discovered the principles of homeopathy. He was doing experiments with cinchona bark and discovered 2 important principles. The first one is that like cures like, and that means that a substance can cure a disease if it has the ability to produce symptoms similar to those of the disease in a healthy organism. Like, for example, you eat some chicken with salmonella for dinner, and at 12 o'clock, you suddenly start vomiting and having diarrhea at the same time. You feel very, very faint and very, very chilly. Those are symptoms that are very similar to what happens if you ingest arsenic tetroxide. And arsenicum is one of the remedies that we use for food poisoning, just to show as an example how like cures like. So the idea is that of resonance. If you've got 2 tuning forces of the same tuning forks, of the same frequency, you hit one and you put it close to another, the other one will start vibrating in resonance. And in some ways, the right remedy resonates with the person, and that's what allows the strengthening of the vital force and the overcoming of the illness. So the second principle is potentization. If I gave you arsenic tetroxide for every time you got food poisoning, you wouldn't thank me because you'd be dead. So Hahnemann discovered that you can still get the healing capacity of the original substance without the poisoning effects by potentizing. And this is a method of repeatedly diluting and shaking or succussing the remedy so that no material is left, only energetic information. And in order to illustrate that, in the top row, this is original substance which gets almost diluted out of existence in material terms. But as that process takes place in terms of the energetic signal, it gets greatly amplified. So that's a quick tour. The remedies are derived from minerals like copper, plants like pulsatilla or arnica, or animals like apis or calcarea. This is elapse, and this is sulfur. So I don't want to spend too long on that because we've got a little bit more to cover. So remedies are potentized, they're non-toxic, they're non-addictive, they're safe in pregnancy, in infants, and in the elderly, and they're safe in conjunction with conventional medicine. It's one of the most advanced forms of treatment on the planet at the moment. So I thought I would give you the feel of a couple of planets so that you can get an idea of how it works when we look at 2 charts. So we'll start at the sun. We'll start with the sun. Again, it's not a planet, but we call it a planet just as a shortcut. And it denotes the essential self. And basically, these are key words that describe it. But for our purposes, it's the quality of the vital force. Okay, it's your vitality, your constitutional vigor. And then we've got the moon. They're called the treasure trove of feelings, because it's your whole feeling instinctual nature. In terms, and these are some of the key terms associated with them. This is being recorded, so you would have ample time to go over it in detail. but I want to get through before we run out of time. For our purposes, the moon denotes the flow of the vital force. So the sun, the quality, the vigor of it, and the moon, the flow of the vital force. Also health in general and constitution. Then I'm going to introduce another two players, Saturn. Saturn sets up structure in the body. It's the lord of karma. It sets restrictions. Time and place are ruled by Saturn. But in medical astrology, it rules over the structures of the body, the bones and the teeth, the skin as the outer layer, as the limit of the body. It has to do with contraction, with atrophy, with apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, which is very important in the embryo in forming structures. Also has to do with scarring and sclerosis and aging. So that's one player. And the other player is Neptune, which is inspiration and idealism. It's your urge to merge with the cosmos, to realize that you're not just your little self, that you are part of the universe, that the universe cradles you in its palm. So it's your eagerness or desire for higher states of consciousness, for merging, right brain function. But in the merging, you tend to lose yourself. So it can lead to leakage of vitality, like in chronic fatigue. It leads to confusion, so you don't know what's self and what's not self. So in autoimmune conditions, very often Neptune is very, very strong in the chart. So let's look at chronic fatigue syndrome. And this is the chart of a lady, 51 at the time of presentation, chronic fatigue with recurrent bouts of fatigue and recurrent sinusitis. Okay, now I'll talk you through this because obviously you've just been introduced to it. But here we have the sun, and here we have a difficult aspect to Neptune, which tells me that this person, their vitality is prone to leakage. There is difficulty with boundaries, and so they can't say no. They tend to overdo it, which is classic for chronic fatigue. That's one aspect. The other aspect is that Saturn and the moon are conjunct. And if you remember, Saturn restricts. And what is it restricting? It's restricting the flow of the vital force. So this person not only has vitality that's prone to leakage, but also its flow is compromised. And that's how it led to a tendency towards chronic fatigue. So what I tell all my patients for chronic fatigue, and a lot of them have this kind of chart, is if you got Sun Neptune, a difficult aspect, in real time, as often as possible, check in, and I use this idea of the circle of energy. Anything that you do within the circle of energy, you can manage fine, and next day you feel fine. If you go outside your circle of energy and you extend yourself, you're going to pay. You are having to take out an overdraft in terms of energy with very, very high interest rate. And if you go outside your circle of energy, your circle shrinks and you can do less and less. If you always stay within your circle of energy, then when you go to bed at night, there is plenty of energy left for healing and repair, and little by little, the circle of energy expands. So that's how you can use those terms, the idea of your vitality sun and your tendency to overdo it and overextend to help someone work with a difficult aspect like this. Just for those who are more conversant in astrology, we've got Neptune here as well, which tends to weaken, in this case, Mars, the immunity. And Mars is in Aries, and she's got sinusitis, which is inflammation, again, Mars in the head, Aries. And if we went through the whole chart in detail, it would talk her medical history. Another one, 36-year-old at the time of presentation with chronic fatigue. Problems started after miscarriage, followed by injectable contraception and suppressed thrush. That is a very lunar thing.
Dr. Blass, I just want to interrupt you just a second, just to give you a heads up
We're
about
running out of time.
Yeah, unfortunately. But
Okay, I'll just summarize. And basically, Neptune and Saturn, Sun and Moon tend to be implicated in most cases of chronic fatigue syndrome. All right, let's take a few questions before we run out of time. Are you there?
Yeah, here's a question from the chat, which let's see. Can you please share resources, books, any courses for learning more about this? That would be great at this point.
These are some that I prepared earlier. This is a little introduction for health practitioners. It's basic. It's the 101 of medical astrology by a Judith Hill. She's written a lot of books. It's very readable. It's very good. It goes into more detail in this one and in her other books, again by Judith Hill.
Are you showing something? Because I don't see the
Yes,
screen.
did you not see it?
No.
Oh, it's right in front of my face. If you're seeing my face,
yeah,
you
no.
should be seeing the book.
Maybe the best thing to do would be if you could share that slide with us and we can send it out in one of our newsletters.
It's not a slide. It's the
it's
book.
not. Okay.
I'm holding up the book. So you can't see me at the moment.
I can see you, but not the slide.
No,
or not the books.
you
I'm
don't
sorry.
see the book in front of me.
Yeah. No.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, Judith Hill is one of the authors that I really find very helpful.
Dr.
And
Blass.
Jane Ritter Patrick.
Dr. Blass.
Yes.
We are not seeing you. I don't know why they say that they can see you. Guys, you can see him down at the stamps, but you don't see him on the big screen.
No.
Okay, so give him the right information. No, we do not see you. We only see a little icon in the middle of the screen, like your camera may be off or it
No,
is
the
a
camera
different...
is on. I wonder. Oh.
It may be still sharing the screen and you don't have anything on it.
I canceled, so cancel. Does that help?
Nope.
No. Oh, technical problems. Video. Let's see. Oh, that's such a pity.
Well,
I don't want to waste time on that just in case we have a few more questions.
Try and turn your camera off at the bottom and turn it back on.
Good idea.
There you go.
Hello.
Now we can see it.
Okay, so this is the one by Judith Hill for beginners, for medical practitioners. Okay. Are more advanced, there's more information. It goes much more in depth. It's a very good one by Jane Ritter Patrick, who introduced me to medical astrology. For a general on the bits and pieces of the chart, this is an oldie, but it's a cracker. It's Horoscope Symbols by Robert Hand. It doesn't explain to you how to interpret charts, but it talks in depth about all the various bits of the chart. So I hope that answers the question. There are other books as well, but these are some of my favorite.
I think that we might have to have you back.
Well, I'll be delighted.
And maybe somebody can give you their birth date and we can, see what that looks like with a person that we know. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? That maybe
no pressure, eh?
Yeah, well, it would be interesting to see, how with someone maybe we know. Maybe we'll do Amnon if he knows when he was born. To see how it's transferred. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say is that I've run courses on medical astrology over the years, but now with COVID, having groups is not possible. And I hope at some stage when clinically I'm not as busy, I will try and do an online course. So if anyone is interested in that, to get in touch through Facebook, and then I'll know if they're interested. I can let them know when that happens, because it's in the process. You would have to translate. You know, I've got lots of patient videos, and you couldn't do, because of confidentiality, you couldn't put that online. So at some point, I'm going to translate it all into an online course in great detail, from 0 to 100 over a weekend or something like that.
Sounds great. I think we could probably stir up some things for you. So anyway, we really do thank you for coming, and it's been, I mean, very engaging and interesting. So thank you very much for all of that. I know we just touched a little bit of the surface. So Uta, Pretty, do you have something you want to add?
It's been fantastic. A whole new entire world out there. I will certainly want to look more into this topic. It's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Pretty, anything you would like to add?
No, it has been a wonderful 1 hour. We didn't realize where it went. And I'm sure that, I mean, this is such a deep topic. We would all want to learn more. And maybe what we could do is, you know, get in your contact details, put it up on our website and Facebook, so people know how to get in touch with you, Gabriel. And the course sounds very exciting. You have some potential candidates already.
It is fascinating. Even after 30 years, I find the subject mind-blowing, and there's just so much more to learn.
Well, the last comment on our chat, which I will leave you with, is that was wonderful. Thank you very much. And that is not the only one that is saying that, but it is the final one.
It's been my privilege.
Thank you so much. And we will be in touch, and hopefully, you know, we'll be able to do some more work together.
Okay.
So anybody else, any final anything? Uta, Pretty, nothing? All right.
Great.
As long as you didn't get astrological indigestion, that's okay.
No. Just want more of it, I think. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and we will see you next month with another exciting show. Please contact us anytime and take a look at our website, Homeopathy World Community. We have so much going on. I don't even know. That would fill an hour, right? Anybody else? Anything else before we go? Okay.
Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and be in touch again.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Thanks very much. Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.